Hey everyone, today I'm working on an 06 Ford Freestyle. I'm going to show you how to change out the water pump. Now, the water pump sits right here, and here you can see the replacement one. You're going to have to take the two pieces apart and attach it there, because this one goes there, and then the thermostat is down there below that, so we're going to go ahead and replace that. So the first thing you need to do to give you some more clearance, take off the mass airflow sensor, disconnect the intake pipe, take the air box off right here, and that'll give you complete access to the area right there. And then you're going to need to drain the antifreeze out. So whenever you drain the radiator, go underneath on the driver's side. If you look right here, you'll see the drain valve for the radiator right there. And I'm using a 3/4 inch socket, but yours might be a different size, so just use one that's appropriate. Go ahead and drain your antifreeze out. So once you get your antifreeze drained, you're going to need to take all the clamps off from your hoses that you see that's attached to the pump. And then remember the lower hose is down here. And then go ahead and start pulling off all your pipes. There's probably going to be some more antifreeze that comes out of them. So I got those two off, then I'm going to disconnect this one, and then there's one last one that's down below here. You can see it a little bit with the camera, but it's the one that goes into the lower side of where the thermostat is. The thermostat sits right in here. We're going to go ahead and change that while we have it out. Now that you've got all the pipes disconnected, now it's time to go ahead and start removing it off from the engine side. Now if you look at your new water pump housing, then you can see the bolts, the mount holes. Now, so the two, this one right here and this one right here, that you'll need to disconnect, which are 5/16 bolts. You'll go ahead and disconnect those off from the side. You can see them mounted right there, and there's one mount right here. So you can see I've got a 5/16 socket with a short extension, 3/8 ratchet, and I'm able to reach the rear bolt. And then the front one is right down here, right below where the thermostat sits. There's also one on the opposite side down below where the shaft is, so you can get either a battery powered ratchet or your other ratchet down in there and take that bolt out. So once you get those out, you'll have to take the two 15mm bolts out to take the thermostat housing off. Now this is on with a O-ring right there off to the side. You need to pop that off. And then on the side right here, you'll see a nut up in there. You'll need to take that off. Now it's easiest if you get a 13mm with a spin pack to just pop it off there. If you haven't already, you probably need to disconnect the battery. Okay, so you get that long bolt out like that, and the housing will come right off. Now your new unit might have a little tag on it like this that says it's been modified from the original factory, and that's because if you look at the original water pump on here, the original water pump does not have any type of keyway up in there. It just gets tightened on with the bolt. But the new water pump has little keyways right there, and if you go to the end of the camshaft right here, it has little notches on there to where you can put the new water pump into place into that section. So now you'll need to go ahead and put your water pump up there. Close to the position. Whenever you get close to it up here, you're going to need to rotate the shaft until you get the little finger to lock in. Whenever you get the little finger to lock in, then the water pump will slide right into position. So once you get the water pump slid into position, and you see that it's flush with the surface on both sides, you want to make sure that you turn the rotor right here and it's locked in. You know, you don't want to put it on there and have it not on and then end up screwing up the end of the camshaft or the new water pump. So now you'll need to take off all the bolts hanging onto the outside housing of the original water pump so you can transfer this outside housing to the new water pump. So once you separate these two pieces, you should see a seal right here. Take that seal off and replace it with a new seal that came with the new water pump. Once you have your new seal on there, go ahead and place this in the same position that came off the old one. Now here's where you need to be careful. You need to make sure that the water pump housing stays flush with the engine as you're putting this on. Once you get it on, you want to run a couple of the mounting bolts in there to try to tighten it up, and then tighten up the outer housing, because you don't want that rotor to come off from the end of the camshaft. You want to make sure that it stays flush. So now I have the water pump back in position with the original plate on the outside. I had the 3 mounting bolts in there and snugged down to where everything is flush, and I made sure that the shaft in here doesn't turn freely on its own, so that it's connected to the end of the shaft, to the camshaft. And if you listen, you can hear it go back and forth where it's actually rocking inside of the journal there. So now you'll start putting all the rest of your bolts around the casing. Now as you're tightening up the outer case bolts, make sure you go in a crisscross pattern and torque them down to factory specs. So once you get all those tight, now you can take your thermostat housing, take off the 3 5/16 bolts, and the thermostat's inside of here. Go ahead and replace it. So once you get those 3 bolts out, you can separate this. You see that the thermostat's sitting right there. You can just, I had to take a screwdriver, pop it out, wedge it out with a seal. There's the new one going back in with a new O-ring. Place it right back in there. Slide the assembly back together. Now go ahead and reinstall your bolts. Now as you're tightening up the housing where the thermostat goes, you don't want to just crank down one bolt all the way, because that's still in there. You need to keep this whole assembly kind of level all the way around. Tighten up the bolts just a little bit at a time to compress the whole assembly down all at once until you get it down to the surface and snug them down. So once you have the thermostat replaced, go ahead and put it down back into the position and run the 5/16 bolts back in there to mount it down. And once you get the thermostat housing tightened up, and go ahead and start putting all your hoses back on. So once you have all your hoses reconnected, then put your intake box back in, your air cleaner, and go ahead and fill it up with coolant. So once you get all that back together, just go over your work, make sure you didn't leave anything disconnected, refill with a proper level and a 50/50 mixture of antifreeze. Other than that, that's how you change out your water pump on your Ford Freestyle with a 3.0 V6 engine. Anyways, thanks for watching my video today. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button for me. Like it, share it, let me know what you think in the comments below. Stay tuned for more videos, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching again.